Welcome to The Explainer. Let's just dive right in and uncover the hidden systems that keep our hospitals, our patients, and honestly, our entire society functioning when everything else goes dark. You know, we rely on healthcare facilities to be these absolute safe havens during emergencies. But behind the scenes, well, there's a highly complex, kind of fragile web holding that whole shebang together.
Now, you might have seen one of these in a hospital room, a laboratory, or, I don't know, maybe even just in the background of a medical drama on TV. It looks exactly like a regular outlet, right? Except for that bright red faceplate. But do you actually know what it's for? I'll give you a hint. It's definitely not a design choice, and it is absolutely not there for your convenience.
So, never plug your coffee maker into the red outlet. Seriously, this red outlet is a literal lifeline. It's connected directly to an emergency electrical system or a backup generator, and it's designed exclusively to keep vital machines, we're talking ventilators, incubators, life support systems, running seamlessly if there's a sudden power outage. Because every single device plugged into an emergency circuit eats up precious capacity, meaning plugging in your phone charger or, your coffee maker can actually overload the system and steal power from the machines keeping people alive. It's a safeguard built strictly for survival.
Which brings us to Section 1, Dead in the Water, when the lifeline fails. Understanding the purpose of that single red outlet really helps us grasp the catastrophic stakes of a total facility power failure.
Let's look at Memorial Medical Center back in August of 2005. During Hurricane Katrina, they faced the ultimate test. Their generators were initially expected to last for 6 whole days. But as the floodwaters rose higher and higher, the critical components of their backup power system, which were located dangerously close to the ground floor, were just completely submerged. The final backup generator died after just 2.5 days. It threw the entire hospital into darkness, resulting in a truly tragic loss of life as life support machines just instantly shut down.
But here's what's really wild about this backstory. The hospital's operations manager actually knew about this vulnerability beforehand. A year before Katrina even hit, he got an estimate for over $250,000 to elevate those essential generator components above the flood levels. But, anticipating a lack of funds from the hospital's administration, he just stashed the idea away.
And this perfectly illustrates a really complex liability puzzle in healthcare. As the quote points out, Memorial essentially just put down on paper what was needed to pass an accreditation inspection, rather than focusing on cross-cutting all hazards preparedness. They'd actually just passed a midterm survey and held this prestigious gold seal. But meeting minimum code requirements on paper, that doesn't magically translate to actual physical resilience. That checked the boxes for the inspectors, sure, but completely failed to prepare for a realistic disaster.
Moving into Section 2, the digital blackout, EHR downtime. So while physical power loss is visibly devastating, modern medicine faces an equally deadly but totally invisible equivalent.
Think about it. When the network goes down, all the digital charts and medical histories literally just disappear. Without the electronic health record, or EHR, staff who are totally unfamiliar with older, paper-based processes struggle immensely. To put that into perspective, one Swedish study showed that an EHR downtime increased emergency department length of stay by a median of 76 minutes. And a U.S. study revealed that test result delays skyrocketed by 62% during these digital blackouts. That is a massive bottleneck. These seemingly abstract digital failures create some terrifying physical realities for patients. Look at these risk categories. Without the network, doctors suddenly lose their built-in safety mechanisms and automated alerts for dosing high-risk medications, things like insulin and chemotherapy. Communication breaks down. Discharge paperwork gets delayed. And worst of all, they lose the ability to easily track a patient's vital sign trends, which means a patient could rapidly deteriorate without the medical team even noticing the pattern in time. Okay, Section 3, the resilience blueprint, fighting back. The situation sounds dire, I know, but we aren't powerless here. To solve these dual threats, hospitals are adopting some really fascinating new blueprints for both technological and procedural resilience.
So on the technology front, let's compare traditional backup generators with combined heat and power, or CHP systems. Hospitals are actually moving away from the traditional ones. Those old generators rely on finite diesel fuel and often take critical seconds, sometimes minutes, to start up. Instead, leading facilities are installing these CHP systems. Why? Because they run daily on permanent underground natural gas lines, providing both heat and electricity continuously.
And the results of this tech shift absolutely speak for themselves. Take Greenwich Hospital during Hurricane Sandy, for example. When the main power grid completely died, their CHP system proved its immense worth. It smoothly transitioned to what they call island mode in just 5 minutes. It kept the hospital fully operational, totally independent of the grid, for 7 whole days. In fact, they were so incredibly stable that they safely accepted 20 additional patients from other failing hospitals in the region. Now that is a game changer.
Now, on the procedural side, how are hospitals tackling the digital blackout? Well, the Sydney Local Health District in Australia, which protects over 740,000 people, by the way, implemented this highly standardized 3-phase protocol to safely navigate these dangerous EHR outages. As you can see, they broke the whole thing down into preparation, response, and recovery.
But what makes their system so incredible are these essential procedural lifelines. They use specialized 724 downtime viewer application computers that literally run on uninterrupted backup power, and they audit them daily to ensure they have offline access to 7 full days of active patient data. Plus, they use centralized physical downtime kits with laminated paper charts. And to make sure everyone is ready, they run unannounced random drills every 6 months. That way, staff know exactly where to find these kits when seconds count.
Which brings us to Section 4, paying for preparedness, the legal solution. Fixing all these physical and digital vulnerabilities requires vast amounts of money, bringing us to a final, incredibly thorny puzzle.
Currently, hospitals are caught in what we can call the liability paradox. They are held to this almost impossible legal standard where they must continuously prepare for every single unpredictable disaster out there. Because of this, even if they save 100 patients through emergency preparedness, a single preventable death could still lead to absolutely crippling liability lawsuits. Ironically, this impossible standard leads some administrators to simply meet the bare minimum code requirements and just play the odds. They figure it's cheaper to deal with the fallout later than to constantly over-prepare right now.
So how do we flip this perverse incentive? Well, legal scholars argue that individual states should step in and offer something called entity liability immunity. Essentially, this is state legislation granting civil liability protection as a direct incentive to healthcare entities that proactively choose to over-prepare. So if a hospital spends the massive capital to install expensive, life-saving systems, like those CHP systems we talked about, or if they elevate their generators above maximum flood lines exceeding minimum code requirements, they get legal immunity.
Look, we have the technology, and we have the protocols to keep the lights on and the data flowing. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you look at the hidden systems around us a little differently now. Next time you see one of those little red outlets, ask yourself, how much should we be willing to invest today to guarantee our lifeline doesn't snap tomorrow? Seriously, what is the true cost of proactive preparedness versus the devastating, irreversible cost of a disaster?